you're minding your own business patrolling the Romulan neutral zone, when all of a sudden, an old and mysterious enemy decides to test you. What will follow is a deadly game of cat and mouse between a Federation heavy cruiser and a Romulan warship. There may be some shooting involved. Before my internet access withered to the weak and pathetic dribble it has been for the last month, my channel had reached the dizzying heights of 30,000 subscribers. 30,000. When I started, I didn't think it likely that I would reach 1,000, let alone 30, but here we are. I thought something special should be made to celebrate this milestone, and so here I have a brand new original Enterprise Blender model, along with a classic Romulan bird of prey, which has been requested by subscribers before. But what to do with them? Well, there is only really one thing we can do. We will explore the classic episode Balance of Terror, an episode inspired by the classic American war films The Enemy Below and Run Silent, Run Deep. And if you like this video, then press the like button, share it on social media and subscribe to this channel. And if you don't like this video, then press the dislike button, share it on social media and subscribe to the channel anyway. Balance of Terror was first broadcast on American television on the 15th of December 1966, and it was reportedly watched by 8.5 million Americans. It was written by Paul Schneider, who also wrote The Squire of Gothos, and it was directed by Vincent McEvety, Dagger of the Mind, Muri, Patterns of Force, The Omega Glory, and Spectre of the Gun. The episode marks the first time we see the Romulans, their creation credited to episode writer Schneider. For those who grew up tall and proud in the shadow of the mushroom cloud, the echoes of the Cold War are obvious. The Klingons stood in for the Soviet Union, the Federation were NATO, and the Romulans were the Chinese. But Romulan culture was clearly inspired by Imperial Rome. We have the names Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome. We have the use of terms such as Centurion and Praetor. In later Trek, it is general knowledge that the Vulcans and the Romulans share a common heritage. It is clear in this episode, though, that Spock knows very little about them. He is as surprised by their physical similarity as anyone else. We learn there was once a war between Earth and the Romulans. This war took place a century before Balance of Terror. The war seems to have been vicious. No prisoners, no quarter given. Atomic warfare was involved. But there was never any face-to-face contact. In spite of this, a peace was settled by treaty which created the neutral zone. And it is through this neutral zone that a Romulan bird of prey has crept, intent on destroying Federation outposts. And this bird of prey has a cloaking device. Whilst otherwise an absolute classic, Balance of Terror does have a weakness. The character journey of Mr. Styles seems rather contrived, certainly to a cynical Briton such as myself. If he feels so strongly about the Romulans that he is making snide comments against Mr. Spock, then Mr. Styles' rescue by Spock later on is unlikely to change his mind. In the real world, having your life saved by someone you are prejudiced against would only make you dislike them all the more, for now you would be obliged to them. But here, in the rosy world of 1960s American television, Mr. Styles, the apparent bigot, has a character journey, the end of which has him wiser. He discards his wicked bigotry. People have been killed. Indeed, as no state of war exists between Romulus and Earth, those people have, in fact, been murdered. 3 outposts have been destroyed, and now a 4th one is under attack. The Enterprise races to the rescue, but our heroes are too late to save Commander Hansen, as its outpost is obliterated. This is the first time we get to see, if you'll pardon the pun, a cloaking device in use. It is an excellent plot device, offering many tense moments throughout the episode. Neither Kirk nor Spock have seen one before. "Invisibility is theoretically possible, Captain," says Spock. The bird of prey here, though, is being rather blasé, apparently incognizant of the approaching Enterprise. "Their invisibility screen," says Kirk, "may work both ways. With that kind of power consumption, they may not be able to see us." Kirk decides to shadow them, as if the Enterprise were merely a reflection or echo, just as the British destroyer HMS Hecate does in the original 1956 novel The Enemy Below, and the American destroyer USS Haynes does in the 1957 film adaptation. Both destroyers are stalking a submarine, just as the Enterprise stalks the cloaked Romulans. The bird of prey bridge, with its piping and its periscope-like control console, does nothing to dispel this notion that the bird of prey is like a submarine. Incidentally, how many noticed its coffin-shaped cross-section? Kirk is cool and calm. He watches and weighs his enemy, but his enemy becomes aware of him and steers for the comet Icarus IV. This, thinks Kirk, is an opportunity not to be missed. As it passes through the comet's tail, the bird of prey will be detectable. The Romulan commander recognizes the trap and escapes, but not before the Enterprise's near-blind phaser fire burns the paintwork. The phaser fire of the Enterprise in this episode is rather odd. Less like that of other episodes, it is more like elongated torpedoes than the usual continuous line of energy. Meanwhile, the bird of prey decloaks and returns fire. At which point, the Enterprise does that most rare of things to avoid the plasma weapon: full astern emergency warp speed. So the Enterprise can go backwards at warp speed. This is news indeed. The bird of prey is smaller than the Enterprise, built for stealth and raiding. From bow on, its upswept wing-like nacelle supports gives the ship a look of a death's head grin. The website X*Scientia gives us a length of 131 meters, and I have no reason to doubt this. We would expect an impulse drive somewhere aft, but there doesn't seem to be an engine here. Perhaps the warp nacelles double as impulse engines. Yet, Scotty says their power is simple impulse. But as others have pointed out, Scotty's exact words suggest the bird of prey's power is simple impulse. This is not the same as saying it has impulse engines only. For my part, I see warp nacelles. If the bird of prey has only impulse engines, how did it reach the Federation outposts? Surely such a slow spacecraft would be at a great tactical disadvantage. Yet it is armed with a plasma energy weapon, capable of pulverizing the asteroids upon which the outposts are built. The range of this weapon is limited, as Kirk and company soon discover, and the Romulan ship cannot fire whilst cloaked. Kirk has noticed. Having outrun the plasma weapon, the Enterprise returns for more, firing its phasers blindly in hope of hitting the Romulans, rather like HMS Hecate and USS Haynes dropping depth charges. The bird of prey is low on fuel, and so the Romulans jettison debris and even a body. It's a trick inspired by Run Silent, Run Deep. As a tactic, it works for a submarine, as the bulk of a sinking submarine would vanish into the depths. The same, though, isn't true of a starship in space. All of the wreckage would be visible, and that debris would have to equal the mass of the starship. So the small debris cloud would not distract the Enterprise long enough for the Romulans to scarper. I'm afraid in space, everyone can see you scram. Now both ships go quiet, each listening for the other, each waiting. Ironically, it is Spock who makes the mistake that alerts the Romulans to the presence of the Enterprise. Perhaps Mr. Styles was right all along. Kirk orders the firing of phasers, and the Romulans jettison more debris, but this time they slip a nuclear bomb in with the rest of the debris, set with a proximity trigger. Kirk recognizes the trap and hits the bomb with phasers. It detonates less than 100 meters from the Enterprise. That is really close. Now we know the strength of the Enterprise's shields. The mildly damaged Enterprise plays dead. The bird of prey decloaks and moves in for what the Romulans think is the kill. But at the last minute, the Enterprise fires, disabling the bird of prey. Kirk, generous in victory, offers the Romulan commander a chance to live, but the latter is having none of it. "I regret that we meet in this way," he says. "You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend." The trope of the worthy opponent, of honor between warriors. I'm reminded of an episode of Blackadder Goes Forth, when flying ace Lord Flashheart meets his German opponent, Richthofen. Two men of honor who have jousted together in the cloud-strewn glory of the skies are face to face at last, cries Richthofen. The valor we two encapsulate, the unspoken nobility of our comradeship, at which point Lord Flashheart shoots him. In the original British novel, The Enemy Below, both commanders, sharing a lifeboat after the sinking of their respective vessels, end up in a fistfight. Not quite the ending of Balance of Terror. And yet, cynical as I am, this is one of my favourite episodes of the original series. It has a wonderful game of cat and mouse, an intellectual but deadly game, with intelligent action, good characterization, and I could just as happily have had a two-part episode of this. And yes, in spite of my cynicism, I like the way it ends. The worthy opponent, honor between warriors. But that's my video, and I dedicate it to all who have subscribed to my channel, and I hope you liked it, or at least didn't hate it.